Hey guys, it's your host, Bailey Cartwright. Welcome to the Stronger Scars podcast, where I invite others to dive deep into the ups and downs of physical and mental scars. Hello everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of the Stronger Scars podcast. Today I'm here with Pat Johnson. Pat was like my first friend at Notre Dame, I would say. I remember we were in, what class was it?
It was
It was like
theology one.
Yeah, theology class.
Goat.
Yeah, and he's really talkative and I was kind of shy and we became friends, but I think it's been really cool to watch Pat's journey because he came in as a NARP, as we would say. And
dirty word.
And he ended up trying out for the cheer team, becoming a cheerleader, doing the cheerleading thing for a while. And then he became one of the most iconic mascots, I think, in the country, the Notre Dame leprechaun. So we have lots to talk about, but first and foremost, Pat, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, what's going on? Bailey did a great job, audience members. But my name is Pat Johnson. I did 5 years at Notre Dame. So I did my full undergrad. I did a master's degree in MS in business, the MSM program in Mendoza. Me and Bailey go way back to literally fall 2017. We just happened to sit next to each other in Theo class, started chatting, and I guess this is my third time appearing on the podcast. We did a few cheerleading episodes. We did one with Annie Weezy on ND diving, and it's good to be back. I feel like I really made it now. Like I'm finally a legit athlete and I can wash away all the nervousness.
It's finally your time to talk about you.
Yeah, let's talk about Pat. That's what
okay, well, I'm curious. I first want to start talking about what was it like, that experience as coming into college, probably not expecting to ever have that athlete life. And then you made this big change and you became a cheerleader. So talk about that experience.
Sure. So I've talked about this a little bit before, but it's always kind of been my dream to be the Notre Dame leprechaun. But it's kind of the way it was a dream, like when you're 10 and you're like, oh, like I want to be a Kung Fu master one day. You're like, I want to do that, but it's too late. Like, oh, that'll never happen. And then I just kind of went for it and started saying yes. So, naturally that started with me by trying out for the cheer team and kind of working my way up. And I never considered myself to be an athlete. Like I did track and football in high school, and I was like, I was all right at track, but I was better at school than I was at track. So I got a few recruiting offers, and I was like, no, I'll go to school at Notre Dame for my brain. But I met a lot of people. I met Bailey, and she had this super cool backpack and the shoes, and I was like, yeah, I want to be like that. What? She gets free snacks? Yeah, sign me up, student athlete. I just worked really hard freshman year, and I kind of remembered what I really wanted, learned how to backflip and throw young ladies, and it's been a blast, and I haven't looked back.
So is the only way to become the leprechaun to be on the cheer team, or does that just kind of give you an advantage?
Good question. So no, you don't need to be a cheerleader at all. And no, it shouldn't technically give you an advantage at all. Because to become a leprechaun in your final tryout, you have a judging panel. And the judges don't know if you have prior experience as a leprechaun or as a cheerleader. But you kind of meet the coaches, you shadow other leprechauns, you learn what's acceptable, what isn't. So I actually tried out 2 times and got cut 2 times before I ever made it as lep. So each year I would gather like 50 of my friends. I'd be like, I'm trying out for lep. And then I would get cut. And, next year I was like, I'm trying out for lep again. And they would all come and I would get cut again. But I learned a lot about, perseverance in that time and continuing on, not giving up. And so I guess that was kind of like me interning for other laps on the cheer team,
Okay, I'm curious. I want to hear, I think people would be interested to hear what that process of trying out looks like. Cause I know it's very, you, like you said, you have to have people come and cheer for you. And like, it's very loud and like in your face and like all eyes are literally on you. And, I think that would be really hard to then not get the position. So talk about that whole experience for someone who's not familiar with it.
Sure. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. So first of all, you got to make a whole like tryout packet. So you got to make a personal statement. This is why I want to be the Notre Dame Leprechaun, what it means to me. Recommendation letter, resume, like you're applying to a job. But then you also have to make a video. The video is whatever you want. So it can be anything. The only restrictions are that it's got to be between a minute and 2 minutes. So you send that in. If you're lucky, you make it to the tryout. The tryout is a few parts as well. So first there's the pep rally, where they kind of prep you in a holding room. They will give you a little slip of paper and it'll be a situation on it. So this is where your improv skills come in. You probably have 3 or 4 minutes to prep a about 5-minute pep rally in front of an audience of your peers, your enemies, Notre Dame fans. It's like a simulation. So one of them would be like, okay, you are at the Orange Bowl in Orlando and the lights went out and you have to find a way to make sure all the Irish fans are safe and all that. So that's the pep rally. And it's, can you be contagious? Can people join into your cheers? And then there are media questions after that. And the media questions are kind of training you for when reporters will kind of ask those gotcha kind of questions. And just to see how you respond. So someone will ask you like, hey, Leprechaun Bailey, what is your opinion on athletes kneeling for the national anthem?
Gotcha.
And then you come up with a response. So you can deflect and you can be like, I think go Irish. Or,
everything go Irish.
Yeah, you can do that. Or you can just be like, hey, I think every athlete has the right to, communicate what they feel and what they think, stuff like that. And then there is an improv bit where it's like the same thing as the first one, but they might give you like a prop or something like that and be like, hey, here's a bike helmet. Go talk to some kids about bike safety. You have 1 minute to prep, 2 minutes to go, look like a fool in front of hundreds of people. Yeah. And then, there's a final interview or two. And then lately they've been asking the Leps to appear at the Blue Gold game to get them some real in-game time, some flight time. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry, those.
No, I think it's, it's one of, when you think of like college mascots, I feel like it's immediately one of the ones you think of. And, you wouldn't, I feel like an outsider wouldn't think that it's that complicated to select the leprechaun and leprechauns. Talk about, I've always been curious about this and I've never fully understood it.
Sure.
There's like one main leprechaun, correct? And then there's like others.
Right.
What is the purpose of that? Just because you can't do everything?
Yes. So right now there's 4 of us. This past year I did football, I did men's basketball.
So you were the main one.
I mean, it was to say main, right? Those are just the sports that I would do. And
football's the main one.
I guess, potato. But my good friend Gabe Ramos did women's basketball and a lot of lacrosse. Alex Sampson split time between cheer and lap, and he did all the Olympic sports, so a lot of soccer, stuff like that. My friend Sophie did hockey. So it's a lot of labor. And as our program has expanded, more programs at Notre Dame have asked more of us.
Right.
So, obviously we're going to go to football, but now it's like, hey, can you make an appearance at Notre Dame baseball, Notre Dame softball? And we're like, sure. So when it's busy, I could be doing 3 or 4 games a week. Like that would be October, November. And it's, basketball overlaps with soccer and there's football on the weekends and all this crazy stuff. So that's when we have other people really come in and help us out. And that way we're not crazy overworked and we can still do fun things like go to the food bank or do Special Olympics. And we're not just, purely supporting ND athletics, which we love to do, but we got to give to the South Bend community as well. That's a big part.
Yeah. I think that's one thing you've always been really good at. It's like giving back. And like, I feel like you've always been good at volunteering and all those things.
Hey, we try. I mean, that's a big part of our program,
When you were the leprechaun, did you not do cheerleading at all?
Good question. So I have been the LEP for 2 years, or a LEP, and then I guess you could say the LEP. This was during the COVID year that I actually got the job. So it was my senior year. And there wasn't so much cheering to do. I mean, it was a lot of cheering for like cardboard cutouts, you know what I mean? Which gave me, it was great. A great experience. I was like, wow, this audience is really stonewalling me, but it helped me learn a lot. So yes, I did cheer a little bit. Appearing as a lep, I probably did 6 games in 2020 and 2021. And then this year was like games every week, football, men's basketball, like 2 a week. And that was a blast. But yeah, it was such a big difference from one year to the other just because of the pandemic.
How do you get like, I just feel like I would be, I mean, it takes a special kind of person. You're very outgoing and like everyone loves you. But like, how do you get prepped for going and standing in front of thousands of people and just like screaming things? Like if people don't join in, you have to deal with that. Like how, like walk us through the prep.
Sure. It depends the game. So like different sports, different settings, different fans. Like it's really easy to cheer football because everyone wants to be loud and scream or cheer. It can be really hard cheering like women's soccer. Women's soccer actually had some really good fans.
Yeah, we do.
But soccer, it's like, hey, we kind of just want to like watch the game. Like unless the game's super exciting, it's kind of more like a picnic where it's like, yeah, we'll cheer along with you, but like not every 2 seconds are we gonna scream, let's go Irish. So for me on game days, just be like, all right, eat a good breakfast, drink like gallons of water. And then I would usually drink a lot of caffeine, drink a bang or 2 or 3 throughout the day. And a lot of it is just attitude. Because when I started, I felt like such an imposter. I was literally wearing leprechaun suit. And I was like, I'm not even in my own suit. I'm such a fake. And that kind of imposter syndrome set in. But after time, it's like, hey, these people think I'm for real. These fans think that I know what I'm doing. So I better act like it, take that risk, even if it is scary to do, something weird like an ambitious cheer. But at the end of the day, it's for them and they love it. And if I fail, I'm failing for them. Who cares about me?
Mm-hmm. You bring up a good point about Connell because he was such an iconic leprechaun for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of whose footsteps you had to follow in. And I think that can be, relating back to any sport. When the starter or the star athlete graduates, someone has to fill in for them. Like it's a really hard position to put yourself in. So kind of talk a little bit on that, just because I think that's an important thing to hit on.
Sure. So this was a big thing, like coming in as the lap. Our coaches, our publicists were like, hey, just be your own person, be your own leprechaun, because at the end of the day, that's why you were chosen. You aren't chosen because you want to be, because you remind us of Sam Jackson or Mike Brown or Lynette or whatever. Yeah. Be your own human being. And I was like, how can I be my own human being? Like there are, 60 people that came before me. How am I different? I'm boring. I'm not fun, whatever. But you start to grow into that role. And just with like a pilot with flight time. So it was wild. I remember we were in charge of like running the ND Leprechaun social media account, right? And we were like, all right, film a promo for Florida State. And I remember like I had to say some words and like I was accidentally kind of like feigning an Irish accent. And I looked at the video again and I was like, what? I was like, oh, delete that. I was like, we got to do that again. Like, yeah. Not that Connell doesn't, sound wonderful, but I was like, I'm trying to be like him and that's weird. So yeah, it's just like making those decisions and then building up confidence. Once you have that confidence, follow your instincts. I did a lot of like weird, fun things at Notre Dame games that I think a lot of previous leprechauns might have been like, I'm not going to do that. But it's fun. Like every football game, I would wear different props from the fans. Like people would bring like sunglasses or like hats. I'm like, can I borrow this? I'll bring it back. Great. Like, so it was kind of goofy, but you have fun with it. And at the end of the day, like it's fan service, and as long as I'm not embarrassing Our Ladies University, I'm usually good.
Yeah, I think especially with a role that's so like televised and like a lot of people see you, like you have to be yourself, because if you're not yourself, you're not doing any good to yourself or other people.
People will know like instantly.
Right. All right. Well, obviously I want to talk about your injury. Your story just kind of, I don't know, it's so interesting to me because you got a fifth year to be a leprechaun, which is crazy. Like that's
I more so got a fifth year because I didn't know what I was doing with my life.
okay,
And
fine, but you still got to be a leprechaun for your fifth year. So you have all these intentions, you're going in your master's program, you know what you're doing with your life, and then you tear your ACL.
Yeah,
Talk about it.
great. So I tore my ACL before all that. I just didn't know it.
Oh.
I had no idea. But I can tell the story if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
I want to say late April, early May 2021. So this was one of those practices the whole team has to come to, but the people that are leaving, like the outgoing seniors, they're just kind of like there. This is more for the people that are returning.
Right.
So my coach was like, hey, everyone, like, let's line up, just do like a quick skill assessment, just to see where you're at and see what things you can hit. And it's all about stunting. So in cheerleading, stunting is like throwing the girls, partner stunting. So one-on-one, throwing a girl into your hands, stuff like that. And we're all lining up into couples. And it's really like simple stuff, but she even told me, she was like, Pat, like, I kind of know where you're at, so you don't have to do this. And I was like, hey, coach, like, I'm not special. I'm going to do it. Like, like I'm going to be a member of this team. So I went to another returner. She was also going to be a 4-year member of the team. And we were throwing, the stunt is called a chair. So you throw the girl up and you kind of catch her seat and you hold her like this. You might've seen it before. Mm-hmm. Okay. I was doing one of those. It's pretty like fundamental, but I whispered in her ear, I was like, you're going to throw this to the moon. And then I did. So she jumped really hard. I threw really hard. I threw her so high that it like left my outstretched hand. So like my arm was fully extended and I still couldn't reach her. I was on my tiptoes. So that's not good. But then if you've ever seen the stunt, her other leg is straight. So I'm supposed to catch her butt, but her other leg went down straight. And I didn't catch it. It actually landed on my shoulder. So then like the shock wave moved through my whole body and pop.
No way.
Yeah, I caught her. This was wild. Because I was with one of the other leprechaun. Gabe was there. He was just like spotting, and there was an audible loud pop. So like I threw her down and I just ACL tears, your leg just immediately like bends. So I was like, oh, that was bad. I kind of walked it off and I was like, it's fine. We'll do it again. And I couldn't like fully press off my leg because I couldn't extend it. My range of motion was just garbage. Yeah, I went down to the trainers and they were like, we think your IT bands are messed up. And I was like, okay. So I went back up and tried to like throw stunts again. And it was just not hitting. My stability was so off. And my coach recognized, she was just like, take it easy. Like you're acting weird. I go through the summer. I'm about to start my grad classes. I'm going through orientation. They're giving us like a little walkthrough of South Bend. They're like, welcome to South Bend. Here's some sights you see. I get a call because I got an MRI earlier that week.
I was going to say, like, did they not get a second opinion?
No, I got an MRI because they're like, we don't know what's going on. It's probably nothing, I already had meniscus problems. So my trainer picks up and she was like, hey, just so you know, your ACL is torn and you have complex tears in your meniscus. And I was like, okay. And this is as we're walking around, there's a tour guide like, oh, this is Howard Park. You can come here. I'm like, okay. And, trying to speak to us. I'm trying to maintain my composure. So I'm like, hey, torn. What do you mean by torn? Like a little torn, completely torn? And I remember she said, well, we talk about ACLs the way we talk about pregnancies. And you're either pregnant or you're not. Mm-hmm. And Pat, you're pregnant. And I was like, I'm pregnant. Okay. Which makes sense because I felt a difference in my leg ever since that popping incident. I remember like the next couple of days, like I went outside running and I was like running a few miles. I was like, this is weird that I can't straighten my leg. I can't bend it, but I don't know what's going on. I remember going to the weight room and I was squatting like significantly less. And one time the bar almost crushed me. Like I could barely get it up. And I was like, something is wrong with this leg. And yeah, that's when I found out in June. So like a month later, the season starts in August and I got that call. I was like, wow, I might not do anything this year.
But you did. And that's what I want to talk about because, well, first of all, ACLs, I feel like they're just one of those things. Like, as you know, an athlete, you know your body better than anyone. Like, you know, when something's wrong. And I feel like an ACL is one of those injuries, like it's very easy to tell that like something's very wrong. And it's frustrating and it can be a little demoralizing when someone's saying like, oh, this is what we think's wrong with you, but you know that there's something really wrong with your legs. So like them saying, oh, it's an IT band and taking you get an MRI, that's super frustrating. That's something a lot of athletes deal with, is people either not believing them or not taking them as seriously and just kind of waving it off as something minor.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say, I had wonderful doctors. I had wonderful coaches, supporting me and helping me out. But yeah, it's true. Like it was hard to figure out what it was at first because ACLs are tricky things. Kind of, I call them, the appendix of the knee. So you don't really need them, and your knee's fine. Like you can still do sports and stuff without them. And I'm me, so I don't really complain. Like, ow, I can't bend my leg. So I was not helpful in the diagnosis at all. They're like, yeah, we don't really know what's wrong. But MRIs really tell all.
Right.
And yeah, like I got that call. They're like, all right, I'm gonna go see the doctor. And my first doctor, he just opened up my folder and he was like, all right, so you're gonna get immediate surgery, and yeah, you'll be good by like January.
Right.
7, 8, 9 month recovery.
Right.
Great.
So if you guys are listening, I've had a bunch of guests with ACL tears, different sports, different genders, and a common factor is recovery is 6 to 9 months. Very common factor. But Patrick here, you did not choose to get surgery. After them saying it's an immediate, you need to get surgery, you didn't get surgery. Why?
Because I wanted to play my sport, in my mind. Being the Notre Dame leprechaun was something I'd always dreamed of, once in a lifetime opportunity. And I was like, hey, I think I'm fine. I understand that I'll get fixed up good and I'll be back to perfect health in whatever, 7, 8, 9 months. That's too late. I'm not really willing to do that. I want to see another doctor. And I did. And my next doctor was understanding. He was like, hey man, I don't want to bench you before the national championship. You've worked for this your whole life. Mm. You can return to sport, but it's going to be limited.
Right.
So if you noticed, I never really threw any girls this past season because I would get yelled at because I was not medically cleared to do so, even if I could and I felt fine. So that's why I was doing backflips and stuff like that. But honestly, I look back and I think what a blessing in disguise that was, because I wasn't worried about, throwing gals and this and that. It's like I could use my voice and my personality to connect with fans. And I think that was really big and really fun for me because honestly, I'm not that good at stunting at throwing girls anyway. Like there'd be a lot of drop cheerleaders. So I'm glad I was able to just kind of chat with people, have fun, and make the games memorable.
And I think that's, getting a second opinion like Pat did. I think, I always say this, like you have to be your best own advocate. You have to take things, if something's important to you, if something matters to you, like you have to take that initiative. You have to, whether, you don't like what the first doctor says, go to the next doctor. Make sure that what is actually wrong with you is lining up. Make sure that the rehab's actually lining up. I think you have to take care of your body or you can't expect other people to do it for you.
100%. Totally believe that.
And, by doing that, you were able to live out your dream, because
Yeah.
the first time you were leprechaun, you said you were going through a COVID year. It wasn't quite the same. And like this last year was really your time to be the leprechaun, and you would have missed that.
I would have. And you know what? It was bigger and better than I ever could have imagined.
Mhm.
I was always worried, you know, like what is there to like about me? There's no way I can become my own person, this, or be memorable. But I guess I was. It was really sweet. A lot of people really liked Leprechaun Pat. And, you know, it was adorable. Some people like made signs at the football games. I was like,
Oh,
I could never imagine that in a million years, you know, like I got a commercial for March Madness. They put a mural of me in the stadium. That was cool. Yeah,
oh.
that was awesome. You know, they had to cover Brian Kelly up with somebody. So they're like, oh, okay, you know. It's true. It's not like I was that good. It's just they were like, all right, we need a new coat of paint over this thing right here.
Goodness. Yeah, I just think it's really interesting, and I want you to talk about this. So like
Okay.
going, having, you went through your whole undergrad, and you watched me go through my injuries. You were on the podcast, you watch other friends go through injuries. So you watched other people go through this.
Yeah.
What was it like for you then when it happened to you, knowing what other people went through?
Sure. So I'd been injured before, but nothing like this.
Right.
So I had turf toe and I was like, wow, this sucks going to practice and watching everyone do their stuff. But it's also nice because like I get to know my teammates better and I don't have to focus so much on the sport. And then I had meniscus problems and I was like, this sucks, but I can still do the bare minimum. But this one, it was like, hey, you're benched. You can't really do anything. So for a while, I was like my coach's intern. I was like, hey, you want coffee? Do you want me to get out? You know, you need me to fill out that spreadsheet, like stupid things like that. But that got kind of boring really fast. So I will tell you what resonated the most for me is I was like, hey, I go to practice every day because that's what you do. You go out there and you support your teammates. But it's not really a reason for me to go to practice every day besides remaining involved and supporting my teammates. Like there's just not much for me to do. It kind of feels like I'm stripped of my purpose. Like I'm only a game day fixture, you know, like I shouldn't be part of the team, right? Because I can't do what everyone else is able to do. Even if I think I can, you know, they won't let me. So that was difficult. I got really lucky how you know, found stronger scars and started doing the podcast and became involved in the Notre Dame community and really the, you know, collegiate athletic community in so many different ways. They were like, hey, we want you and the other Leps to run the social media account. Great. Done. All of a sudden I had a purpose again. I could do stuff. You know, we would go around campus and start filming things. I felt like I could better support my teammates. Yeah, because otherwise I'd be kind of sitting at practice and I'd try to help out as much as I could, but I'd be sitting and watching or like sitting and doing homework. Which I don't know, that definitely would have had a big effect on like me and my self-esteem, you know, being like, hey, I'm not good or healthy enough. So it's tough. And I heard a lot from you about your injury and compartment syndrome, especially freshman year, you know? And I was like, wow, I got it, you know, especially when you come to a place to do a thing. You come to Notre Dame to play soccer, you know, you make a decision, you come back to grad school to be the leprechaun, and it's not panning out. So that is difficult to deal with. But when a door closes, you take a sledgehammer and you bash open a window, and then you kind of crawl out through it and you make it work.
Okay, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate because
Oh, no.
not everyone, and myself included, is able to have that positive mindset. It's really, really hard for a lot of people. That was something I felt like I was in quicksand. I couldn't get out of it because I was just miserable. I wanted to make the people around me miserable because, you know, like you said, I wouldn't have gotten into Notre Dame without soccer. I literally came here for soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was taken from me. It was taken from me for 4 years, basically. I never got it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's easy to be spiteful and like I am such a team player now, and I get that. But even I think even the biggest team players, the biggest supporters, those who have the most positive outlook, doesn't mean that they're happy that they're going through an injury. It doesn't mean that it's easy for them. And I think, you know, me and you have very different perspectives because I'm not as positive of a human being as you.
It's situational. It is.
And it's hard. Hearing you say, like, I had this perspective of a positive outlook, I knew I needed to show up to practice and just be a good teammate and help my coach out in other ways. Not everyone has that perspective. So it's good to hear your side. It's good to hear my side, other people's sides, just because we're all so different in how we react to, adversity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I love about this podcast is great. Most injuries, you'll get better. The mental aspect of injuries and how it affects you up here, a lot of people don't see that coming. Mm-hmm. And I understood it to an extent, but it's hard to really understand or empathize with something if you've never lived it. Mm-hmm. I lived it, especially as soon as I got that call, we finished up our little orientation trip. I hit the gym because I was like, if I'm upset or like mentally messed up, I got to go like exercise. That's just me trying to like reinforce a good habit. And I remember I was sitting at the bench being like, wow, I think this is maybe just not meant to happen.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Like I got cut twice. I got the job and there's a global pandemic. I come back for another year and I rip apart my knee. Maybe it's just not supposed to pan out for me.
Right.
But I know what happens if I give up right now and I get that surgery. I'll catch the tail end of basketball season and that's it. But if I keep going, I could still make it work. And you know what? My knee feels basically fine. Mm-hmm. You know what? I was planning on getting that surgery all season to the point where I told everyone, hey, I'm getting surgery tomorrow, the day before surgery. Yes. Right after March Madness, I was like, it was like the Wednesday I got back. I think we got back like a Monday or something. I was supposed to get that surgery. And I went for, I guess, like a clinical assessment, right, kind of check out my knee. And the PTs were like, are you sure you want the surgery? And I was like, yeah, everyone has been telling me that I should get surgery for the last 8-10 months. So I'm going to get this surgery. I'm committed. I made a bed for myself upstairs. I ordered a game ready. Like I'm ready to go. I told my professors and they were like, you should think about maybe not getting it.
I love this. Oh my gosh. I love this conversation. Pat, I think sometimes, mm-hmm, not all the time, in my experience, yes, sometimes athletes are not forced. You're never forced, right, but you think that people are saying to you, this is the right option. Right. This is the fix all be all. And you just get surgery.
Yeah, 100%.
And that doesn't always need to be the answer. Sometimes I totally get it. Listen, I had 4 surgeries. I get it. Sometimes that sounds like the answer.
Yeah, a lot of surgeries.
But I think a few of them were, what's the word? Like early.
Unnecessary.
Yeah, maybe unnecessary, maybe like a little jump the gun. And I think that's something it's important to bring to light is like, mm-hmm, you don't always have to do what someone with a degree is telling you to do. If you don't want to do it, if you want to wait and do it later down the line, see if your body changes, see if, in your case, I know you were in the gym literally every day. Like, I'm sure doing other things other than surgery can help your body. And I think sometimes, in athletics, it's, oh, this got hurt, this tore, this whatever, you have compartment syndrome, surgery the next day.
Yeah, this was my thing. I saw the first doctor. He said immediate surgery. I was like, I'm going to see another doctor. He said, okay, you can do what you want to do, but you should get a surgery at the end of the year. Okay, done. And then we check back in March, schedule a surgery. I think this was about March 23rd. I was supposed to get the surgery. So this was March 22nd. They're like, hey, come into the Goog, get an assessment. We just want to see where your baseline is so we can know where to get you back up to with surgery. And they looked at my numbers, they looked at range of motion, agility, strength, all this stuff. And it was really weird because the trainers, my PT who's running my assessments would grab other trainers. I was like, oh my God, look at this. And I was like, what? And then they're, making me do a little hop test. And they go, look at him. And I was like,
do you have Mandy?
I did have Mandy. I don't know if I'm allowed to say her name, but Mandy the goat. Mandy took care of me.
Mandy loves the shout outs.
Okay. Mandy's wonderful. It was Mandy and Courtney. And I was jumping around and they were like, he has a torn ACL. And they were like, really? And I just felt like Captain America when he came out of the console. But they talked to me for a long time and they're like, you might not need the surgery. And of course I was fired up because surgery was in 12 hours. I already asked friends to pick me up. I was like, I'm getting this surgery. I'm getting it because I'm committed. And that's why I'm getting it.
Right.
Yeah, I was like, I'm mentally committed. I told everyone, I want to eat ice cream and have people take care of me for a few weeks. That's what I want. And then she was like, listen, man, if you want to defer just a week, you can do that. I will talk to your doctor. He's fine. He has an opening the next week at the same time. I think you should do that. And I was real upset. I was like, fine, whatever. Because I don't know. I kind of felt like there was some agenda behind it. I felt, I don't know, deceived, I guess. I was like, oh, maybe they don't want to pay for the surgery, or maybe there's a liability thing. But okay, my doctor was like, hey, I was just going to give you the surgery because you told me you wanted it. And I was like, yeah, I told you I wanted the surgery because everyone else told me I should get it. And we were like, oh, this is a funny little pickle we're in. Yeah. And then everyone else, it was just always the plan. But when they looked at my numbers, my legs were the same. They had basically the same strength, basically the same agility, minus one ligament in the left.
Right.
So I ended up not getting it. I saw a third doctor in New York and he was like, I wouldn't operate on you. I was like, okay, I guess that's my answer then.
So them speaking up and just saying I know that you're on the schedule, but I just don't think this makes sense. I think that's really cool that actually panned out like that.
It was cool. It was kind of embarrassing. Actually.
It is, because I know what you mean when you're saying you told people you were having surgery, you had this whole, plan.
Yeah.
And things change. And I get what you mean by that, because when you're prepping for a surgery and you tell your whole family, they're all texting you, your friends are texting you, it's embarrassing for it not to fall through.
Yes. And someone was like, oh, goodie basket, on its way. And I was like, cancel it. Cancel. I don't need it. But yeah, it's I told everyone, hey, I'm so injured, I got to get sliced open tomorrow. Then I was like, just kidding. I'm not that injured.
But so this is something I have written down that I want to talk about. You grinded in the gym. I clearly wasn't there with you this year, but I saw on your social media, I saw, all of your lifting Snapchats and things. Instead of, pouting and being upset that you were hurt and you weren't having surgery right then and there, you were going to wait till after the season, you went to the gym. And clearly that is what played a big role in your ACL kind of not doing what it does to a lot of people. So talk about that.
Sure. So my trainer initially, she was like, all right, you can do this, you can do your limited activity, but you have to rehab your leg, and I'm used to doing strength stuff, but this is all mobility stuff with bands. I was like, okay, then I'm going to do it both. I will do mobility and I will do strength. And, I ended up being in the gym a lot alone just because that's how I lift. And I think that lifting was really good for my body, of course, but also for my mind. There's a lot of feelings going on. You're angry, you're upset, you're whatever you may feel from an injury, let down maybe. So that lifting kind of helped to keep my head level. And I always felt like I was working towards something. There were times where I was like, okay, this is routine maintenance. This is just upkeep. But at the end, I was like, wow, like I'm getting a lot stronger and I feel it. I can see it, especially when it's something like my leg. Like I couldn't straighten my leg for months. Like I wasn't able to do that, the full straighten. And there were a lot of times during the football games, you're running around for 6, 8 hours, like my knee would give out. And then I have, one kneecap, it's got like, it's like the size of a grapefruit, and the other knee looks like a regular knee. So then you gotta work out to get back to base level. So that was always hard. You spend a few hours on the game ready, you ice, elevate, all that stuff. But yeah, I didn't want to give up because I'm not good at it. I don't like it, because even if I try and fail, I'll go down swinging.
Right.
So I think it reached a certain point when we first started. The doctor and my coaches were like, hey, like, we hope you make it through football season. Like we hope your knee doesn't give out. But I was doing so much activity that I kind of learned what my knee could do and what it couldn't do. And pretty much anytime I hurt my knee, it was like, I don't want to say a freak accident, but it was like, oh, like I lost my bearings. I messed up my knee really bad at Florida State. I got a picture somewhere where my knee is just enormous. Because I was like doing a backflip and I took a step back and there was a hole in the sideline. Like there was just like a little divot. And of course my knee like collapsed, which is bad. That really hurt. You could feel the swelling immediately. But people are still screaming at you like, hey, leprechaun, man, do a backflip. Yo. I'm like, all right, I will, but this is the last one. I'm going to collapse. But it's fan service. You got to keep people happy.
Well, I have written down pressure of being the leprechaun as somebody with an injury, because I guarantee none of those fans either knew or cared that you were hurt.
That's true. Yeah.
So how did you maintain that? How did you, like you said, someone says do a backflip, you're like, okay, like how did you at the same time be a leprechaun, be what you're supposed to be doing, and be, like a cheerleader for the fans, but at the same time, like you're hurt, like you have to manage it.
For sure. It's definitely, I would say, knowing your limits, kind of like abiding by your limits, being like, okay, I can do backflips and I'll be fine. But, if I can do squats and I can squat heavy, but I'm going to have to squat wide, I can't do that shoulder width squat, things like that, and making small adjustments. I will tell you, like, my knee is great and I can do pretty much everything I want to do. If you asked me to like step up onto like a tall chair, I would be like, I'd be like, stop me. Like, I swear to God, one of my roommates had to like hold my waist as I'm changing a light bulb because it was so hard. So I thought some things are difficult. It was never that bad. I will say the worst was I got heckled. I think it was UVA. It was the football game, or maybe it was Florida State, somewhere like kind of down south. But they were like, oh, like, why don't you throw any of the girls? Why don't you throw any of the girls? And I was like, oh, like, because I'm the leprechaun. Ha ha ha. Like, you're being cute and jovial. And they're like, no, I was a cheerleader. I know that the mascots can't do anything. You're just a failed one of them. Like, you're just not throwing girls because you can't do it. And I was like, that was like the one time where I got kind of mad as a leprechaun. And I was like, yo, that's not, okay, walk away. I was like, go Irish. You guys have a good game.
Right.
We're still waiting. So I was a little mad there, because there's certain expectations, especially like the last couple leprechauns did all that stuff. And I felt badly that I couldn't, even if I knew I could. So
Right.
There may have been a few times where my coaches and the camera were pointing another way. And I was like, hey, come here, I won't drop you and I'll throw someone.
Yeah, I think, it's at that point, it becomes a bit of a mental battle. And if you're open to, I'm just kind of curious, like when you were going through all this, like how was your mental health? Was that something that you struggled with? Did you prioritize it?
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
Well, this was funny. Like there are a lot of things like floating up here because I think as far as like the leprechaun position that I got, like I actually got the leprechaun position before I got into grad school. So I applied really late to grad school, and they were like, hey, you're going to be the leprechaun if you get into grad school. And I was like, great. I got into grad school late. And then this happened. It was like I got the knee injury, and I might not, I might be like the injured leprechaun, or the leprechaun that just like walks around and does service events, which is fun. I love that stuff and being in suit. But it wasn't, exactly the dream I had panned before myself. So that was difficult. I would say my mental health was bad. I would say it was bad over the summer. Just because, it was still like the remnants of the pandemic. I don't think anyone was doing great that I knew during COVID. You can't see people, stuff like that. But also my sleep was so messed up, so bad.
You used to stay up till like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I was worse over the summer. I was up to like 5 or 6, and I would have class at like 11:30, because I seriously think as soon as I tore my ACL, my sleep habits changed, and it was so hard for me to sleep at night.
Really?
So hard. Yeah, like I usually sleep on my side. I'd have to move to my back.
Yeah.
And yeah, sleep just affects everything in life, I think. So I'd wake up and I was like crabby, like falling asleep in class. So I'd drink an energy drink, and then I'd be fine. And then I would like take a nap at night, and I couldn't fall asleep until 6 a.m. in the morning. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. So it's all like a ripple domino effect. Everything's connected. But, once you see like a little hope, a little light, you can go for it and follow the funnel.
Right. So I love to ask my guests what advice they would give to someone in, blank situation. What advice would you give to someone who has this dream that, to be the leprechaun, or this dream to be something that only a few select people get to be? What advice would you give to them? Like, how do you keep going? How do you, go from A to B to C to get there? Like, what kept you going, and what do you think you could say to someone who needs to get there? Well,
I will quote the words on my coffee mug. Don't stop believing. Thank you, Airbnb. So I was kind of thinking about this because I've actually been running a lot lately, because I can now with my knee. So like the first time in a year. And this is for me, like I'm watching all my friends get like really good jobs and consulting and whatever, finance, great, well-paying jobs. And I'm still looking for a job in the film and TV industry, because I'm like, that's what I've always wanted to do. I'm going to make like no money, and probably, people are going to like talk down to me for years. But I think that following your dreams is something you sort of owe to the universe. It's the debt that you pay for being alive. And at the end of the day, if you get them or not, I don't think it matters as much as the effort you put into pursuing them. I think the pursuit of that dream will make you happier than if you reach the end destination or not. Because I think the journey really tells you what kind of person you are. And that was my thing. I was like, even if I don't get to do a football game or travel with March Madness, I can look my coach in the face. I can tell my kids when I'm older, I tried. I worked my ass off. I did everything I could. And that would give me satisfaction.
Right.
So I would tell that person, whatever they're going for, go for it. Mm-hmm. Trust your own judgment. Listen to other people's opinions. Ask for more opinions. Take them into context. And remember that you're the final judge. Like you're an adult at this point. You got it, man.
Right.
Like, don't call it impossible if you really want it. Chance the Rapper.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. And like, I guess when you said that, it made me smile, because growing up, my dad, like his song for me would always be The Climb by Miley Cyrus. Cheesy, whatever. Like we literally did our father-daughter dance to it at the wedding. But if you like really sit down and listen to the lyrics, like it's not about how fast I get there. It's not about what's waiting on the other side. It's about the climb. Like you said, it truly is about the journey. It's about showing yourself that you can get through things, showing yourself that you can work hard, not caring if you fall down, you get back up. If someone tells you you can't do it, you show them you can do it. It's about all these little things. And then once you get to the top, you finish your climb. Sure, it's going to feel great, but what are you going to have to look back on? You're going to have that journey, that climb to look back on. That's what's going to really matter.
Great experience.
Right.
It's a great experience.
Yeah. So I think that's really important. And like a lot of young athletes, a lot of people who are going through that journey, you know, I'm still going through that journey in a way, you're still going through your journey. Like you have to sit and embrace that and enjoy it, because so many times I talk to people and they're like, oh, I wish I would have enjoyed it more while I had it. I wish I would have taken the time to really dive into it. And, you know, you don't get to redo life. You get one go.
Damn. Right. I'm just like, wow.
You know what I mean, though? Like this
No.
second, this moment, like it's here and then it's gonna be gone. And that's just the reality. And like you have to enjoy it. You have to put everything you have into everything you do.
Yeah. And for me, I always think later on, how would I feel about myself if I gave up right now?
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, thank God I stopped and did the safe thing and got that safe job and, you know, went through that recovery and had a good, stable knee. Maybe that would be awesome.
Right.
But also maybe taking that risk and being like, I got to be the leprechaun and I got to do this and be on TV, whatever. And I can say that I took that risk. I don't know, maybe I'm a gambling man.
So Pat did a LinkedIn post and I loved it because you talked about obviously tearing your ACL and then not getting the surgery and persevering through getting to finish your season as the leprechaun. And I just thought it was so like cool to see how many people were supporting you. And, you know, it's just really interesting to me because I sometimes with my own experience with my injury, like I view it as a very negative thing. So I used to view it as a very negative thing. Like I'm obviously like on the upswing and like I embrace it, love to support other people with their injuries. But I think a lot of time in the media and in the non-athletic world, which is why I loved how you brought this into LinkedIn, people view it as a negative thing and as something that isn't positive. It's not something you're persevering through if you suck it up. So I love how you brought that into, you know, LinkedIn, which is like, you know, the business job world. So what was that kind of like to see people comment and say like, oh, such a great perspective, so proud of you, you know, just it's nice to be, you know, solidified in what you're doing.
It is. Well, it's funny you say that because when I sent the post, I was like, hey guys, I don't have a job, but I didn't get surgery. So no, it was really cool to see the different people that commented. And of course, everyone was wonderful and really supportive of me, but I was surprised. I was like, wow, Tom Mendoza of the Mendoza College of Business dropped a comment. That was really sweet. You know, a couple guys that were like senior VPs and big media. I was like, wow, as someone that wants to go into big media, I'm like, maybe I'll send that lady a message and be like, hi, you know, thanks for commenting. I really appreciate blah, blah, blah. Still need a job, whatever. But it also felt like I made a difference to a lot of people this season. So that was very humbling. And it gave me a what if, you know, like what if I didn't try? What if I gave up? Yeah. And I don't know. It's, you learn a lot from those decisions. Cause I think those, I don't want to say like make or break a life, but they kind of determine the kind of person you become. Right. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't need to talk about this, but I always talk about just kind of how much my injury changed me, not as a soccer player, whatever. It's a sport, you know, as a person,
right.
My injury changed so much for me. And I'm grateful for it because I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't be able to get through hard things. I wouldn't be able to face adversity. And, you know, to like, I always think it's funny when I listen back to these things and I'm like, people who don't have an injury or never had to like struggle with that before, they probably think I'm so dramatic. Like, it's just an injury. Like, it can't be that life-changing.
Yeah.
But to me, it was. And, it sounds like to you, it's being, the starting point of a path for you. And I don't know. I think it's really cool to see how someone like yourself who goes to college thinking they're never going to play a sport there, ends up playing a sport, ends up becoming the leprechaun, gets hurt. Now what? You know what I mean? I think it's really cool to see how an injury can change someone.
Absolutely. And I've loved watching your transformation as well. I mean, look at this. You built a network, you built a brand. You've had really high level people on this podcast. So I don't know, you should be very proud of yourself too. It's like, yeah, compartment syndrome sucks, but you definitely made the best out of it. And I think that's really, really impressive. You got lemonade.
Thanks. I do. I think, I hope the listeners on this episode specifically, like, one of the things I'm happy we talked about was the whole surgery aspect. And like, you don't have to just do what someone tells you because you see doctor in front of their name. You don't have to, you have to listen to your own body. And I'm not saying like, yes, sometimes surgery is the answer. Like, trust me, I get that. But sometimes like, it's okay to push your body a little bit, like see what you can handle, see what feels right for you. So I'm happy. And I think, your story is really cool because of that.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. At the end of the day, like for me, no wasn't really an option. Giving up wasn't really an option. Like they say in improv, yes and. So I just kind of yes anded this whole year, and worked out really cool for me. And I think you did the same thing too.
So what's next for Pat? Are you getting surgery ever? No.
So Notre Dame will pay for my surgery up to 10 years.
Yep.
Maybe. I mean, right now, I don't feel like I need it.
Yeah.
Something else pops, sure. Yeah, I guess I will. But I feel fine. I feel good. Going to New York. Hopefully I get that job. Yeah, I'll let you know. You'll get a LinkedIn post if I get it. So shout out.
We don't care about social media. Follow Pat on LinkedIn. That's where he puts those deep things.
That's what I'm talking about. That's where the real life updates happen. No, we'll see. So that's what I'm really hopeful for, is to get that job in film and TV, be late night comedy, which like, wow, what a dream.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know, like I kind of talked about this in like we had an end of the year cheer banquet. I was like, well, I started, following my dreams, and it was scary, but it's worked out pretty well for me so far.
Right.
So I guess I got to keep going, right? I'd be really mad if I never tried. Right. So I might as well try and fail, because I don't have a good story.
Okay, I want to talk about the commercial because I'm so intrigued. So Pat, I literally had no idea this was going to happen. I'm sitting at Nick's house watching March Madness. Yeah. And Pat's on my screen in like a legit commercial. Was it Nissan?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's Pat. That's my friend. So walk us through the whole thing. Like that just had to have been such a cool experience.
Yeah. So this was, I want to say December or November. I'm at work and my coach gives me a text. She goes, okay, so don't tell anyone, but you might be in a Nissan commercial. And I was like, cool. Okay, great. Yes. And so then it is January. We take a trip out to Las Vegas. We fly out for like 4 days, 2 work days, 2 travel days. So we actually did 3 commercials. So there's one you saw on TV that a lot of people saw. There's also one that was for mobile, I guess, because it was like a quick 6-second spot. And then they also made a blooper reel, which was pretty funny. I found out about that after the fact. Embarrassing. So the first one we filmed in, it was the parking lot of a water park, which was cool. So they'll set up, it's not even a model car, it's a real car. And they'll put, 3 green screens around it in order to CG simulate that you're driving. So we did that. I worked with the Seton Hall Pirate, who's super cool. I met a bunch of mascots, but they're all just like hilarious and weird and zany. They're just like all theater kids that think they're superheroes, which like, It's kind of me also. And then the next one was really cool. So the one you saw on TV, we actually drove 2.5 hours outside of Las Vegas into Southern California in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were in a ghost town in California. If you've ever seen Cars, it was like exactly like that. It was like, this town, California, population 4. And then I was asking people, on the production crew, and I was like, hey, are there really only 4 people that live in this town? And they were like, no, there's 2. 2 of them moved away. I was like, cool. And we're out there in the middle of nowhere, but met so many wonderful people. Got to sit in a really cool brand new Nissan, which is pretty sick. It's a good looking car. It might look dated in a few years, but I liked it. Just had a lot of good experience. So I've always kind of wanted to go into like acting and comedy. And now I'm like, add that to my reel.
Yeah.
There you go. There's 18 seconds of legit advertising.
I'm going to add it to the podcast notes just because it's cool to see you on like on the big screen. And you're the one driving, right? Like driving.
I was driving. I didn't drive, but yeah, like they pay people to do that.
I was freaking out. I was like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe.
It was super fun. And it was weird because I saw it like once or twice. I was bartending one night and people are screaming at me. They're like, Pat. And I was like, that's rude. Don't scream at the bartender. They're like, no, look. And I turn around and it's me. And I'm like, ugh. Channel. I was like, I don't want to see that. But it was cool. And it was like super humbling. And now all my friends make fun of me. They're like, yo, how's that salad? And I'm like, ha ha ha. But no, that was seriously one of the coolest experiences I've ever had.
Well, seriously, thank you so much for coming on. I think, I love your story because I feel like a bunch of unexpected things that you worked hard for. Do you know what I mean?
It's serendipitous. It's like, you know what? I talked about this in my post, but I was like, yeah, you're lucky, but you work hard to get lucky, right? So it just kind of all matches up. You work hard enough and then weird, fun opportunities will come up. And that's why life is so cool.
Right. And you should be very proud of yourself. I'm proud of you. I'm sure your family's proud of you. Like,
proud of you.
It's not easy to go through things that change the course, it's not easy.
Well, thank you. You're really sweet.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on. And yeah, I hope we'll have more Pat content because I love when Pat comes on and stuff. Pat's the best.
Oh yeah. Let's go. We'll do an in-person podcast when we come to Boston.
Okay. Sounds good.